man, you've had a year, and we're gonna get to golf. But what do you think of your new CEO, by the way?
I like him. He's got a lot of ambition. He might ruffle a few feathers along the way, but I think the PGA Tour is going to end up in a good spot under his leadership. Do
you think some feathers need to be ruffled along the way? Do you think there's some changes that need to happen?
I think so. Golf is a very, it's entrenched in its traditions and its values, and that's a good thing. I think that's something that golf can lean into, but at the same time, we have to move with the times, and we have to try to bring golf into the 21st century. I mean, look at where we're doing this today, with Tomorrow Sports and TGL. So, and I think his experience in the NFL and being, such a great sports executive for such a long time, that can only be a good thing for the tour.
Okay, we'll get back to plenty of golf, I promise you. But let's start talking about your life after golf, which is starting while you're playing. How did your business relationship with TPG come together?
So my business partner and I, Sean O'Flaherty, we started it was a little investment vehicle about 6 or 7 years ago, Symphony Ventures. And along that journey and along the way, we met a few individuals from TPG, one being a partner, Jeff Rhodes. I played in a Pro-Am with him at Quail Hollow, I think in 2019. And it sort of was just this relationship that developed organically. And Jeff and Todd run TPG's healthcare endeavors, and we invested alongside TPG in a couple of their healthcare investments and one of their golf investments as well, Troon Golf. And it's just been a relationship that's really developed over the years, and I feel like it was great synergy. Sean and I were at a bit of a crossroads with what we do in terms of do we keep committing our own capital to fund these investments, or do we try to partner with someone, or do we try to raise our own fund, or we had a few different options on the table, but we sort of put our heads together with the guys from TPG, and they were thinking about starting a sports strategy, and it just seemed to all come together pretty nicely.
Todd, what kinds of things do you think you'll invest in?
Well, I think we're going to look at investments that feel authentic to what we do in private equity. And what I mean by that is we're going to look at operating businesses. We're going to look at businesses where we can have either control or a lot of impact, and where we feel like we can inflect the growth of the business during our ownership period. So one of the reasons I say that is it's quite different from where a lot of the capital has been formed, which is more around passive investments in teams, which I think is an interesting space, certainly. It's just not the area that we feel we're particularly well suited to. So as we look at what has been a growing pipeline, there are software businesses, there are a number of picks and shovel businesses, companies that serve the amateur sports area. These are not necessarily the most exciting, top of the funnel teams, but they're really interesting operating businesses, and partner with Rory and a few others, we feel like we can have a really significant impact on the broader sports.
You want to have a voice. I mean, you want to be able to affect change where you want to?
I think that there's a lot of opportunity. I think you have in sports a nice, steady, secular growth that's driving sports, but you also have these opportunities for step function growth and change. Some driven by technology and technology adoption, some driven by just bringing a lot of resources and additional management talent. It has a lot of the characteristics of the sectors that we've picked over the last 20 or 30 years, where we've had a lot of success. And to your point, a big part of that is creating value during your ownership period.
What interests you, Rory, in that regard? The types of things you'll look at?
So as Todd said, I think a lot of the capital that's been allocated in sports recently has been these minority investments in teams or in leagues. And what Sean and I feel like we bring to the table is we've been a part of building some businesses within sports. So whether it be TGL or Golf Pass in conjunction with NBC. And then we've also been involved intimately with some other businesses within sports that we feel like we've had a big impact on, more so from a strategic standpoint, and something where we can really, put our heads together with the principals of those companies and really try to make a difference in the business. And that's something that I'm excited about, because then if I do invest in something, I really feel like I'm making a difference instead of, you know, throwing some money at a team or whatever. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but you know, Sean and I have sort of liked to get our hands dirty, I guess, over the last few years, and we really feel like the best investments we've made are the ones that we've been very active in.
You're still a young man, obviously, but as you grow older, as your time on the tour gets later, do you see yourself today as a golfer / business person? Or are you still full dialed into, you know, I want to win more majors and I want to do this and I didn't win that tournament and I'm going to go give it everything I have to continue the count?
No, I think as long as I'm playing golf competitively, I will be a golfer first and foremost. Golf is the reason that I am on this stage. It's given me a platform to follow these different interests in my life. But you know, as time goes on, and you know, I used to be the young guy on tour, and I look around myself now, and I'm not, and I've got the gray hairs to prove it. But I do see that, you know, that second part of my career, and I still feel like I can be a really good golfer for the next 5 to 10 years. But you know, I'm still going to have half my life to live after that, and I don't want to hang up my clubs one day and sit at home and think about, like, okay, what am I going to do next? So I think to put the wheels in motion, partnering with great firms like TPG, following my interests in investing, it sets me up for that second phase of life, which I think a lot of athletes, you know, don't get there. And I'm, you know, I want to, when I feel like I've done everything that I want to do in the game of golf, it'll be so nice to hopefully step into this other role, and it sort of be a smooth transition into that.
Todd, you know, if sports investing is going to become part of what you guys are going to look at, is there enough to go around? Like, it's so crowded now, not to mention expensive. Valuations have just gone straight up, as both of you guys know. What's your view there?
Well, I think a lot of this depends on where you focus. So to your point, there has been a lot of capital formation around, you know, some of it more from the equity side, some of it more from the structured capital, structured finance side, around teams and leagues, particularly those at the very top, you know, the big leagues and the big teams. But that, again, is not where we're focused. And so to us, it's sort of interesting for us is that a lot of the companies we're looking at, we have a lot of momentum in the pipeline. They look a lot like the businesses we've had success with in software, in sort of in the service side, in picks and shovels. They look very familiar to us from our other sectors. They just happen to be in the sports wrapper. And sports is one of those ecosystems that you need to be very focused on. You can't dabble. So we're building a team where, you know, to Rory's point, we're not trying to raise a fund. We're trying to build a business that's going to create a lot of opportunities over decades. And as we do that, we see that with increasing confidence that there are a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of opportunities where our type of capital and the other skills that we feel like we bring to the table between Rory, Sean, and Symphony and TPG and the other partners that we've been bringing in can create a lot of value. And so we're encouraged by what we're seeing, and it again starts with defining the sandbox that you're going after well, and I think ours feels a little bit different than where most of the capital's been deployed.
The fact that Rory's a global icon, what does that mean to you in terms of geographically where you can deploy some of the capital that you have, the kind of businesses that you want to invest in? Does that open many more doors than otherwise might exist because of his reach?
I think it does. I mean, we've been investing globally since the founding of the firm as well. But Rory's brand and connectivity is certainly game-changing as well in terms of sourcing opportunities. It's opened the floodgate in terms of talented folks who want to work with us. So it's had a very big impact. I think there is a lot of opportunity in sports globally. We'll probably start with the majority of what we're doing in North America and the US. But there's a lot of opportunity in Europe, and there is in Asia as well. So again, we're not trying to eat the elephant in one sitting. We have a lot of years to build this, and we have a lot of different avenues to explore. And as I said, we feel like there's a lot to do out there.
Are there athletes, Rory, that you've watched make the transition from the playing field, so to speak, to the boardroom that you've admired, that you've maybe gotten advice from, that you look at as a model for what you'd like to achieve?
Yeah, I would say the one that I've, I mean, there's been a lot. You know, I think when I set up my own company back in 2013, my business partner, Sean, spoke to Maverick Carter and LeBron and that team, because we were really trying to set up something like what the structure like LeBron has. But then once you start to talk to other athletes, the one that really stands out to me that I think has done a really good job in protecting his brand and sort of making a smooth transition to that second part of his career is Roger Federer. You know, Roger's made some great investments in things over the last few years, and you know, he's really leveraged his brand and where he sits in the global sports ecosystem to make a difference in those investments. And I've been lucky enough to spend a bit of time with him and his manager, Tony, and you know, we really love what they're doing.
Oh my gosh, what he's done with On.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what you're alluding to, probably.
Yeah.
It's which, you know, extraordinary.
They would say that was a sort of serendipitous, lucky thing that happened, that Nike didn't re-up, and then they went off and they did their own thing, and they found Uniqlo, and then On came, and it was a Swiss brand. But you know, I think in this business you make your own luck as well. But yeah, that's just one of the things. But they've been very intentional about what they do, and they haven't partnered with a lot of different people, and you know, they've done a great job.
Did I notice that there are non-sports people on your list of like that person's been interesting, Philippe Lafont?
Yeah.
From our world.
Yeah.
One of the world's great tech investors, for those who are not all that familiar with Philippe and Cotu. Why him and how?
I think the European connection is a nice connection. Philippe is, he's a member at a couple of the golf courses that I'm a member of.
That always helps.
That helps. But then obviously, as you said, Philippe is one of the best tech investors of the last couple of decades. But Philippe will tell you himself, you know, I've sat and had a lot of conversations with him, and he said, you know, people talk about the wins that I've had, but people never talk about how much money I've left on the table. If I didn't get out of Apple early, if I didn't get out of NVIDIA early, if I didn't do this or I didn't do that. He's like, everyone talks about the great investor I am, but he says, I've also left about 100 billion on the table. So he's humble in a way that, you know, and he works hard and he does his thing, but, you know, we share a love of golf and a love of wine, and, you know, we've sort of connected more over that than, even, you know, we've talked more about that stuff than investing, but he's always a nice person to pick his brain at times.
Todd, it's pretty interesting to me, it's remarkable really. If you look at golf icons and the amount of business that they've been able to generate after they've stopped playing. Jack and Arnie have just made unbelievable amounts of money once their playing careers have ended. Tiger is a billionaire for all of the exploits that he has. What is it about the game that affords that? Is it the global reach? Is it the individual nature so that people feel like they identify with the icons of the game?
I think it's an interesting question, and I'm not sure I have the perfect answer. I think it's probably a little bit of both in terms of what you described. For us, I think going back to where Rory started, we've been investing together for 7 years now. So this isn't, there's no getting to know you. I mean, he referenced my partner, Jeff Rhodes, who we've been investing literally for 2 decades. We probably talk to each other more than our spouses. So as you build something, you have to make sure that the vision is consistent and that the skills that you bring to the table are complementary. And so we've worked on these investments. We participate in the same way on the investments in terms of investing our own capital, participating in value creation when we have successful exits. And so there isn't a getting to know you exercise. This is sort of a partnership continued. And what we're really excited about is what we can do as we think about this in a very concentrated way. So we're going to be doing everything together in sports. But you are right that there seems to be an overlay in a few sports, one of which is certainly golf, in which there's a very sort of sophisticated, business-minded, long-term approach. which is at least what we aspire to at TPG as well, in the sectors which are relatively few that we try to be experts in.
Rory, I'd love to be able to talk some golf with you in front of this audience. McIlroy at the Masters, the film from the Masters just dropped this week. Have you watched it?
I've watched a little bit of it. I haven't got all the way through it, but...
It's about an hour.
Yeah.
I watched it. It's appropriate that it's called a film because it was truly cinematic. When you made that putt, you hugged Poppy, and that walk that you did from your family to the clubhouse was extraordinary. And I'm wondering if you can put us back inside that moment.
Yeah. The one thing I would say is Jim Nance and Trevor Immelman did such a good job of not saying anything during that entire walk, which I think just sort of made the whole thing even better from a television standpoint. But from my eyes, yeah, I've just done this thing that I've wanted to do my whole life. And, even if I start on the green, I turn around and the first person I see is my best friend from childhood, Harry, that's on my bag. And then I walk off the green and I see my wife, Erica, my daughter, Poppy. And then, just this, the sea of people on both sides. And you're trying to take it in. You're trying to look left and right to see if you see anyone in the crowd that you want to acknowledge or you want to say hi to. And it's just, it's a overwhelming feeling and so many emotions. And at that point, it probably still hadn't sunk in. It was such a roller coaster of a day. And yeah, I just, it's hard to put into words. I still, if I watch that final scene on the 18th green and I drop to my knee, it's still hard for me not to cry. It just, whatever it is, 8 or 9 months on, it's so hard for me not to feel those emotions again. But that's if you want something for so long and so badly, and you end up doing it, you dream about doing it, but you don't dream about what comes next. But honestly, I've dreamt about that moment for so long, and it lived up to everything I thought it would be and more.
The long journey is over. Yeah. McIlroy has his masterpiece. Yeah. That was Jim Nance.
Yeah.
And has it set in now?
Yeah, I think so. So most places that I go now, so I traveled, I was in India a few weeks ago. I was in the Middle East the last 2 weeks, and most places you go, if you're doing events, the people want to see the green jacket, so you bring the green jacket with you, and sometimes you don't want to wear it, you don't want to and then I said to my wife, I sort of complained about wearing it in Abu Dhabi, and I said to my wife Erica, if you ever hear me complain about wearing this thing again, punch me or do something, because I've waited my whole life to wear this, and now I'm complaining about wearing it. So, but yeah, it's amazing, the fact that you can show it to people, and I think it was the first green jacket ever in India. So just doing little things like that is, it's very, very cool little perks.
That was obviously just one of many highlights for Rory this year. Of course, defending the Ryder Cup and winning it on U.S. soil was obviously a big one. I'm sure most people in this room were cheering for the United States, except for a few people I know are from Europe or other areas of the world who are in this room. Can you reflect on that as well, being able to do that and have such a central role in that whole process, both as hero, villain, everything?
It's very funny how you can go from hero to villain very quickly. I would say, yeah, look, I think winning an away Ryder Cup is one of the most difficult things to do in our sport. We don't have to deal with partisan crowds very often. Most of the guys, anywhere we go, it's sort of like a neutral venue. Everyone seems to cheer for you, and not a lot of guys out there aren't liked. There's maybe a few, but most of us get really good support anywhere we go. So when you do step into an environment like an away Ryder Cup, it's a little different for us. Football players or baseball players or any of the big sports, team sports, they deal with that on a weekly basis, and we don't. So just trying to get comfortable in that environment is one thing. And yeah, it's tough, but it's, as an individual sports person, to have that feeling of the team around you and the team support, especially when you go into an environment like that, that's a really nice thing to have. And, having watched the Ryder Cup back, it's amazing how well we played. We played great on the first day, but then the Americans came out on the second day and they played just as good as we did on Saturday morning, but everything they did, we would hit it closer, we would hold the putt after, and it was just like every single time. And the one thing I've said post Ryder Cup is, I really don't want people to dwell on some of the bad stuff or some of the scenes in the crowds, because I think it takes away from what a performance it was by the European Ryder Cup team. And we know the nature. I mean, every other sports person deals with that stuff, as I said, on a weekly basis. So, we just had to, have thick skin for that week. And I certainly let it get to me at some points, but, it makes it even nicer to be on the winning side after it.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, because I asked Brian about the relationship between the PGA Tour and LIV. You were obviously very outspoken at the beginning, and I think more accepting is a fair word to use.
Yeah.
But also suggesting that it would be better if there was unification. Do you think there will be? Do you want there to be?
Yeah, I think I fear that, golf is in such a good place, but at the same time, you see some of these other sports that have been fractured for so long. You look at boxing, for example, or you look at what's happened in motor racing in the United States with Indy and NASCAR and everything else. I think for golf in general, it would be better if there was unification, but I just think with what's happened over the last few years, it's just going to be very difficult to be able to do that, because, as someone that supports the PGA Tour and supports the traditional structure of men's professional golf, we have to realize we were trying to deal with people that were acting in some ways irrationally, just in terms of the capital they were allocating and the money they were spending. And it's been 4 or 5 years, and there hasn't been a return yet, but they're going to have to keep spending that money to even just maintain what they have right now. A lot of these guys' contracts are up. They're going to ask for the same number or even bigger numbers. So LIV have spent $5 or $6 billion, and they're going to have to spend another 5 or 6 just to maintain where they are. So if I'm looking at the world of golf, I'm way more comfortable being on the PGA Tour side than on their side. But, who knows what'll happen. But as I said, I think the leadership that Brian has shown already and where he wants the PGA Tour to go, I think everyone on the PGA Tour is, feels like we're in a good place, and trust that his guidance and leadership will position us in the right place.
Finally, Todd, you've seen how competitive this man is on the golf course. We all have. Will he be that the same way when it comes to making deals?
Well, I think we've already seen it as his partner. I mean, he and his team are, they leave nothing on the field, which is great. Because again, a lot of the value, some of it's making the deals, but a lot of the value is what you do after, how consistent your follow through is, how often you show up, how you show up. And that's probably the part of this that I'm most excited about.
Well, we're excited to see what you do in this new endeavor, and of course, we'll continue to follow you every week on the tour.
Thank you.
Rory McIlroy, Todd Sisitsky, thank you so much.
Thank you.